National Prosecuting Authority intends to ask the Pietermaritzburg High Court to dismiss an application by French arms company Thales, which is trying to block its corruption trial. Thales and former President Jacob Zuma face charges including corruption and racketeering relating to the 1990s arms deal. Thales argues that the deaths of two key witnesses infringes on its right to have a fair trial. Zuma, who failed to stop the prosecution, supports Thales' request for an immediate acquittal. All right, now let's move on to this story. The Auditor General has raised concerns about the State Information Technology Agency's ability to protect government departments from cyber threats. Speaking before Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts, officials highlighted significant governance issues as well as a severe shortage of skilled personnel. The AG warned that delays in modernizing IT systems are hindering service delivery, with SETA taking an average of 4 months to procure essential goods for departments. By law, all government departments must rely on SETA for their IT needs. To discuss this further, we're joined by SCOPA chairperson Songezo Zibi. Mr. Zibi, thank you so much for the time. Appreciated here. In the age of tech in which we currently live in, shouldn't government's own cybersecurity be perhaps the pinnacle of technology in the country?
Good morning, Arabelle, and thanks for having me on. The simple answer is yes, it should be, but unfortunately it is not. And the Auditor General raised much more than cybersecurity issues, which we've seen right across a number of state entities where it is found that their information management, information security and technology security generally is poor. So SETA underperforms in that respect, but there are other areas as well, which is just simple modernization and being able to procure technology, software and services on time. That's an issue. And the organization itself has been in turmoil for a long time with 5 MDs in 5 years. So it's an organization that simply can't perform its mandate, actually.
So if it's not fit for purpose, does it need an overhaul or a scrapping?
I don't know. I don't know yet. We are going to have the minister as well as the State Information Technology Agency appearing before the committee sometime in May. We have not agreed on a date as yet, but they are going to come. And hopefully after that hearing, we'll get a sense of whether it can be turned around or not. What we know is that the situation is totally untenable. It might as well not be there.
I mean, one would also say that if there's the case, as you say, that it might as well not be there, is it because we've just underspent over the years just with regards to this? Or is it just those procurement processes that you speak of which are just delayed and take too long?
Now, my sense is, and I hate to prejudge the issues because we're still in the inquiry phase, but according to the information and insights that we have so far, it appears to be a myriad issues. Firstly, they just haven't been able to have proper governance and management structures and consistency for a very long time. They have not been able to attract the right level of talent. There appears to be a problem with the strategic focus of the organization, operational performance, governance, and so on. So it's not a funding issue per se, because each department is supposed to have its own information technology spend. And what we see is that organizations that look after their own technology needs, like SARS, seem to do well. And ESCOM similarly, and so on. So these ones that rely on SETA tend to have problems, including outdated office software.
I mean, look, we're buying laptops for 91,000 Rand by the seams of it. So one would have thought that perhaps if we prioritized better, we'd be able to ensure that this sort of thing doesn't actually happening. How do we fix this, do you think, right now? And I know you're saying you're still in the middle of this entire process. You're still expecting to speak to the minister, for example, as well then. But just off the top of what you're seeing right now, is accountability meant to lie then with just the minister in the end here, or are there other parts within the government department?
Look, the minister is elected as an MP and then appointed by the president to perform an executive function. And the minister's responsibility is ensuring that the laws and obligations of various agencies and departments are implemented faithfully. That is why accountability rests with them. The minister appoints the board in concurrence with cabinet, and that board needs to oversee the entity effectively, appoint the right executives, etc., etc. It appears that we have had a failure up and down the system over the years, not just now.
So, unfortunately, we're running out of time. So I just want to perhaps move a little bit to this issue, which will definitely be a major one over the next few days. You've recently said on this channel as well that the chances of reversing that imminent 0.5 percentage point VAT hike on the 1st of May seem to be out of question at this point in time. The hope is just that it is temporary. How long then is temporary? Is it that 45 days that you speak of between Act being put in place and implementation fully, or is it the 1 year until when the next percentage point increase or 0.5 percentage point increase is anticipated?
So it's difficult to put a number of days specifically without hearing back from the finance minister, and we're expecting to hear back from the finance minister soon. The point I was making is that it takes retailers a long time to make sure that the price of everything is absolutely accurate and they can account for the VAT. So whether you're buying sweets or you're buying a jacket or you're buying a TV, the price has to be accurate and that VAT has to be passed on to SARS. That takes time. And typically retailers get between 30 and 45 days to implement this kind of change. However, taking it off would also mean a similar amount of time to be applied. So I think we must be reasonable in our expectation. I don't think it can be taken away, in the middle of the month, for instance. However, I think if we look at it on a month-to-month basis, let's say, in a month, in 2 months' time, if a solution is found, then it can be reversed.
When you say reversed, does that mean ultimately you could claim back that 0.5 percentage point VAT increase upon further VAT implications at a later stage when you're claiming from SARS? Because that just feels as well like an administrative nightmare.
No, look, I don't think people can claim back for VAT. So if you bought sweets, I don't think it's possible to go back to the store and say I bought sweets on such and such.
I might just.
But I think what we must just try and do is to save taxpayers as much money as possible within this financial year. And we must be reasonable in our expectations because even for Treasury, they've lost time in terms of implementing the anticipated increase in February. It was supposed to go into effect in April.
Yeah.
So out of that total amount they wanted to collect, April has been lost. So, it worked, it cuts both ways. That's what I'm trying to say.
In voting to approve the fiscal framework, do you believe that perhaps yourself and other parties like Action SA were perhaps duped then into believing that it could actually be reversed at a later stage?
No, look, what we always knew was unreasonable was an expectation that it could be reversed within the month of April, such that on the 1st of May, it's not going to take place. We didn't think it was impossible at the time. But my colleague Makashule Gana is on the programming committee in Parliament. He knows when Parliament is sitting and they sit and make these decisions. There was nothing in the program, and it was transparent. The program is published. There was nothing in the program that said there was going to be a full sitting of the House in April. That was always known. So I guess the question has to be asked of those people who thought that there could be a reversal without a sitting of the House. We always knew because the program is public. It's not a secret.
This will be an interesting one then to go back on. Songezo, appreciate the time. Thank you so much for joining us, consistently willing to share some information.